Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, we can't see anything. Can you hear me? How frustrating is that? Does that happen to you? You really don't want it to happen to you when you've got a room full of people, but if you've got a distributed PI planning event, this is probably going to happen to you at some point. So what can we do about it? How can we mitigate it? Tightrope walking with me, Ian J. Franks, resulting from a collaboration between Amplify Results Consulting and RenTouch. Hi, my name's Ian J. Franks, and I'm your host for this series of videos resulting from a collaboration between Amplify Results Consulting and RenTouch. Today we're talking about how we can handle some of the technology challenges that we face when working with distributed PI planning teams. We regularly use video conferencing almost every day in our business lives, but now you're talking about handling an event where you have upwards of 100 people in multiple locations and all coming together for 2 or maybe even 3 days, depending on the agenda you've had to follow. So we want to do the best we can to mitigate any of the challenges. So what can we do? Number 1, test the rooms. And I don't mean 30 minutes beforehand, I mean a week or 2 beforehand. And I don't mean just testing point to point. Get all the rooms that you intend to use in all the different locations together and online at the same time. Test that everything's connected. Test that when you have them all connected, you haven't got one room that's slowing everything down. Start to understand where you might have some challenges. Think of this almost, if you like, as an inspect and adapt opportunity for you to find out where you might have problems and take some corrective action before the actual PI planning event. Things I'd recommend: walk around each of the different rooms, check that you can be heard clearly. That was a challenge I had with one company I worked with, and we ended up adding new microphones into the ceilings to be able to cope with the sound challenges we found. Obviously, if you're using an external venue, then make sure you take some time to build that into the contract, that you get access to the rooms or room a little bit beforehand so you can do some of the similar tests. And when you're using the rooms, think about Wi-Fi dead spots, especially if you're going to be broadcasting draft and final plans from each of the different locations and teams are going to be standing in different areas talking. You need to make sure that you can clearly hear and see what's going on. So take the time to really test the rooms and do it well in advance so that you can take some corrective action to address your issues. Tip number 2, make sure you establish some technical backups. Probably your PC is one thing to think about. Sure, you used it on the day to test and everything was fine, but how many times have you been caught out by that morning there's a load of updates that come to hit, or worse still, your PC decides then it's going to crash completely. So make sure you've got a second PC on standby that's loaded up, where it's got the charts and the slides and so on that you need to use for that day ready and available. Recommend that you test that PC with the network as well and make sure that that's there and working. It's probably also a good idea to consider a second video channel if you can. I would certainly recommend that you'll use a different video channel to your main video channel to support your Scrum of Scrums and any other synchronization meetings or the management meeting that you want to do during the PI planning event. So take some time to get some backups in place. Hopefully you won't need them, but if you do, you'll be glad you took the time to do that. Number 3, establish a local proxy RTE or a facilitator. This could be really important if your technology does fail, just to keep the event on track while you bring things back online. For that reason, I like to have somebody locally who's acting as an RTE or at least as a facilitator. They understand the agenda, what's supposed to happen next. They're really familiar with what's happening, and they can keep things moving along in the different locations if you lose the link to the main room. Obviously, PI planning is a major investment. Even if it's done distributed, you still have to have a number of teams come together for a few days, and the last thing you want is to lose time or lose traction. So that's a really good point to try and have an RTE locally and someone who can keep things running. If you can stretch to it, besides the RTE, you might want a local AV lead or support or technician, because if there is something wrong, the RTE fiddling around under tables connecting wires still means the event's stopping and suffering. So it's best to try and have somebody who can back that up as well. And the 4th and final tip in this area is to use the same rooms each time if you can, and assuming they worked, of course, when you used them the first time. Now that you've put all this effort into testing everything, you've taken time to make sure that the rooms are connected cleanly, there are no Wi-Fi dead spots, the sound is good, then it makes sense to try and use those rooms each time if you can. So do try and put some effort into getting those established and maintained if you can. As with everything here in this series of videos, the key thing is to try and take care of everything that you can in advance so that on the day you're not distracted from the value add of the exercise and you're focused on facilitating and leading the team through the PI planning event. So they're just some of the things that I've used before in the past, and I hope that they help you or give you some ideas of things that you might want to check or make sure you take some time to cover. If you've used something else or you've had success with other ideas, we'd be happy to hear from you. Please drop us a line. That'd be very interesting, and maybe we can all share that information. As for now, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again.